Okay, so our notes today are on polynomial long division. It's section 5.4 in your book, but we're going to do this lesson over 2 sets of notes, so it's 5.4a. Our content objective is to divide polynomials using long division, and our language objective is to describe that process with correct terminology. First thing I want to note, as you see in the notes right now, this is a very similar process to numerical long division. So this, if you remember long division from when you learned it in elementary school, it's very, very, very similar, pretty much the same thing to that process. We're just adding in binomials and polynomials rather than just numbers. And if you've been struggling with factoring larger polynomials, this actually might make life a bit easier for you because it provides another way to factor or to find factors of those larger polynomials. So we're going to jump right in with an example. So our example, I'm going to divide 6x squared plus 7x plus 2 by 2x plus 1. So I'm taking this polynomial, dividing it by this polynomial, so this quadratic divided by this linear term. So first thing I'm going to do, write out my equation. So I have 2x plus 1 as my divisor, and then I have x squared plus 7x plus 2. So I'm dividing this by this. And step 1, if you remember long division, you want to take out the largest part of your number that's being divided first, or you want to multiply this by something to cancel that out. So I'm going to multiply the quantity 2x plus 1, so the binomial that I'm dividing by 3x, because that will give me 6x squared as the first term. So if you're following along, I'm multiplying this whole quantity by 3x. So if I multiply 2x by 3x, I get 6x squared. But I can't just multiply the first term by 3x. I'm going to multiply this into both parts. So I do 3x times 1, and I get plus 3x. So then I'm going to subtract this whole quantity from that whole quantity. So 6x squared minus 6x squared is going to give me 0. So then 7x minus 3x is going to leave me with 4x, and then there's nothing to take away from the 2, so that carries down as well. So I just subtract these down. I put this out front so I remember that I'm always subtracting, because sometimes it can get a little tricky with negative terms. So you're subtracting each term down. So now I'm going to continue to divide. So I want to cancel out the 4x this time, because that's the highest degree in the polynomial that I'm dividing. So my second step, oh, sorry, I skipped a step, or skipped writing down a step. I subtract the second equation from the first. So I did that, but I didn't write it down. So sorry, backing up. I subtracted the second equation from the first. And now my third step is going to be to multiply again. So I'm going to multiply 2x plus 1 by 2 to get 4x. So again, I'm trying to cancel the 4x, so I'm multiplying 2x plus 1 by 2. So 2x by 2 is 4x, 2 by 1 is 2, and again, I'm subtracting these. So step 4 is going to be to subtract again. So I'm going to do 4x minus 4x gives me 0, 2 minus 2 gives me 0 again. So there is no remainder here. So sorry, I skipped this step. I write this on the top. So I multiplied by 3x. So that's my first term, and 2 is my second term. So I have 3x plus 2 is my answer. I should have been writing them as I was doing the work, but I multiplied by 3x and then 2. So my solution for this is going to be 3x plus 2. So the factors, or the things that the number I divided, or the polynomial I divided by, and the polynomial I got as my answer are 2x plus 1 and 3x plus 2. So this is my factored form. And that is it. So again, I should have written those as I was going, my bad, but make sure as you're dividing or multiplying by numbers to cancel them out in your division process, you write them at the top. So I'm going to flip the page for a quick check if you want to follow along with me. Also, as I'm doing this quick check or writing out this quick check, send me a quick email. Tell me you're listening to this. I want to make sure people are actually listening and understanding. So please don't tell your friends so they can get used to watching the notes on their own and not just being reminded that their friends are listening. So please send me a quick email. Let me know you're listening. All right, so for a quick check, I want you to divide 4x squared plus 23x minus 16 by x plus 5. And I want to know, is this a factor? So go ahead, try that out on your own. I'm going to go over it now. So I'm again dividing seeing if x plus 5 divides into 4x squared plus 23x minus 16. So first thing I'm going to do is multiply by 4x. So I multiply by 4x first. 4x times x gives me 4x squared. 4x times 5 gives me 20x. But again, I am subtracting this. So that gives me 0, and that gives me 3x minus 16. So now I need to multiply x by 3 to cancel that term out. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 5 is 15. If I subtract this out, I get 0 there, but I get negative 31 here. And I can't divide this any further because there's not an x in it. So this is why this question was added to the quick check, because this is not a factor. So if there is a remainder, then it's not a factor of that polynomial. So x plus 5 is not a factor of 4x squared plus 23x minus 16. So my answer for this problem would be 4x plus 3, and you can just write it remainder negative 31, so the r just means remainder, so r is remainder, and it is not a factor because there is a remainder. So if you get a remainder or a number that cannot be divided any further by your polynomial, then it is not actually a factor of that polynomial you're dividing into. So I'm going to do another example now. Make sure you write down any questions on that quick check that you might have so we can go over them together. But the next one I have gets a little bit trickier. So I'm going to figure out, is x squared plus 1 a factor of 3x to the 4th minus 4x cubed plus 12x squared plus 5. So I'm going to divide this whole thing by this. So I'm going to do my little line over here. First thing I want to note before we even really start this, if there is a degree missing, in any part, so that means either the polynomial you're dividing by or the polynomial you're dividing. If there's a degree missing in either, so here we're missing an x and here we're also missing an x, then, so any part of the problem, you need to put a placeholder of 0. So put a placeholder of 0. So in this case, I'm going to divide x squared plus 0x plus 1. So I'm putting that placeholder there. And then I'm dividing that into 3x to the 4th minus 4x cubed plus 12x squared plus 0x plus 5. So again, there are 2 placeholders here that I'm going to use because they are missing in that problem. So next thing I'm going to do, multiply x squared plus 0x plus 1 by 3x squared to cancel out that term. So again, I'm putting 3x squared first. So I have 3x to the 4th minus, this is still going to be 0x cubed, and this would be plus 3x squared. So again, I still multiplied by that placeholder. So 3 times 0 is 0, but x squared times x is x cubed, so I'm leaving that. So I remember that's the placeholder that's going to be there. So I'm subtracting this whole thing. So those cancel, and then this stays negative 4x cubed, and this becomes 9x squared, because 12 minus 3 is 9, plus 0x plus 5. So now I'm going to multiply, second step, I'm going to multiply by, sorry, subtracted, sorry, I keep forgetting to write that step. So step 2, I subtracted. Step 3, I'm going to multiply by negative 4x. So I'm going to skip writing that out, but you know I'm multiplying this whole thing by negative 4x. So I get negative 4x cubed, and then minus 0x squared, plus 0 minus 0, either way, and then minus 4x. And this is why I have us write this bracket here. So I remember, since these are negatives, I'm switching the sign. So I do negative 4x cubed minus negative, which becomes plus. So plus 4x cubed, so those still cancel out. The 9x squared carries down, but this time I have minus negative 4x, which becomes plus 4x plus 5. All right, we have to keep going. So the next step, or step 4, I subtracted. Step 5, I'm going to multiply by 9. So I'm going to multiply 9x squared. So 9x squared plus 0x, and then plus 9. I'm going to subtract that whole quantity, so those cancel. 4x carries down, and 5 minus 9 is going to be negative 4. At this point, I can't divide any further because I can't divide an x squared into a x. So I'm done at this point. So therefore, that's what the 3 dots, remember, there is a remainder. So x squared plus 1 is not a factor. So x squared plus 1 is not a factor because there's a remainder that I cannot divide any further. All right, we're going to do one last quick check. Actually, no, I'll save that for class. So remind me in class, we'll do one more quick check together. But that's all for the notes today. Make sure you write down any questions, comments, or concerns you have so we can go over them together in class.